Welcome to my presentation on Kasiiya Papagayo this afternoon. As you know, my name is Nicola. I'm the UK market manager for Senderos. We've been working with Kasiiya Papagayo since it opened really in November 2018. As many of you will already know, and as you can see from this map, Kasiiya is situated on the northwestern coast of Costa Rica in the Guanacaste province, north of the Nicola Peninsula. So Guanacaste is perhaps a lesser known area of Costa Rica, perhaps lesser visited than other popular areas such as San Antonio, and the highlands where the volcanoes are, and the kind of the rafting rivers, and maybe Osa Peninsula where there's a lot of wildlife. But it's populated with these amazingly stunning small coves and beaches, and is very well known for its good snorkeling. Much of it is protected, as the jungle here is rare, dry tropical forest. And it's also a really popular spot for surfing as well, and sport fishing, that kind of thing. It's very close to Nicaragua, which means that transfers into up to Nicaragua are very quick as well. So as per normal, I'll be going through the presentation, all aspects of Kasiiya Papagayo for about 20 to 30 minutes. And then there'll be time for a Q&A session in the chat box. If you note down any questions and let me know at the end, that would be fantastic. And then I will follow up with an email afterwards. I'm just going to, okay. So Kasiiya Papagayo, as I mentioned, opened in November 2018. The lodge is considered a wilderness retreat. It is located on a small peninsula surrounded by 123 acres of private protected land. The idea of Kasiiya Papagayo was to have as minimal impact as possible on its surroundings and blend into the environment as much as possible. There's a really strong connection here, connection with nature and wellness, so a combination of these things which the hotel really does strive to provide for each of its guests. This was kind of the main objective of the owner. They are a member of the Long Run. You can see here up in the right hand corner. The Long Run is a collection of lodges all over the world who strive for conservation and sustainability in tourism. So getting to Kasiiya Papagayo, the transfer time from Liberia Airport to the hotel is around 45 to 50 minutes. You can see here that it is a very kind of direct route. Just above Kasiiya Papagayo to the north here is the Papagayo Peninsula. This is probably where you'd find some of the other better known or well-known hotels in this area. So like the Four Seasons and the Andas Resort, much bigger chain kind of resorts you find in this area. And Kasiiya Papagayo came to this coastline with their kind of unique model of accommodation in these tented suites. So it is very, very different from the different hotels that you find in this area. So the first half an hour of the transfer from Liberia Airport is all along main roads, going through towns and villages. But the last 15 minutes is on a road that is only suitable for 4x4 vehicles. It's very bumpy. It can get quite muddy in the rainy season. And so this is something to bear in mind if your clients are on a self-drive package, for example. And it's also something your DMC should already be aware of. And so they will have already supplied your clients with a 4x4. But also if clients are staying 4 or more nights at Kasiiya, they do get a complimentary transfer from the airport. And so they will obviously be sending out a suitable vehicle for that. If they are doing a self-drive package, then there is an area beyond the hotel where they can keep their car, and then the hotel will come and pick them up for that last bit of the transfer. Guests can also arrive by boat to the property. As you'll see in a moment, the property has this incredibly long, large, serene beach, and it is quite a spectacular way to approach the hotel from the sea. So it's a 20-minute road journey to the two different ports, one south and one north, and then it's a 20-minute boat ride. And they also have a helipad, so there are rates available for helicopter transfers from Liberia Airport. And so if passengers are coming from other areas of Costa Rica, which is probably quite regular, you know, it's quite normal. If they're coming from somewhere like Arenal or Monteverde, you can expect that to be kind of a 2.5 hour to 3 hour drive. Manuel Antonio is probably about a 5 hour drive, so a full day drive. Whereas from the northern part of Costa Rica, you're looking probably at a half-day drive. And then there are regular flights from San Jose to Liberia Airport that only take half an hour as well. So this is the peninsula that the hotel is set up on. And there's going to be quite a few of these aerial images because I think they just really show the aspect of kind of wilderness and just extraordinary landscape that you're surrounded in when you're staying here. So the area, as I mentioned, is characterized by these rocky hills and covered in dry tropical forest. So it's alive with bird and wildlife all year round. And it's also within this area protected by the UNESCO Natural Heritage. And that's because dry tropical forest is not, is becoming endangered, which means that the species that you find inside these tropical forests, things like jaguar, types of crocodiles in the national parks, different types of birds, things like hummingbirds, are on the endangered list. And so there's a huge area of Guanacaste province that is protected by UNESCO Natural Heritage. So this photograph here shows Laguna Beach here, which is a 50-meter beach right in front of the hotel. And you will also be able to spot some of the buildings. So I'll go over where they're situated now. So right on the kind of this grassy area here, you have the main beach cabana and main reception. You've got the spa tucked up in the forest behind that. So you're taken up by a little golf buggy up to the spa. And then the 5 suites on the beachfront are here. So they are called either Lazy Turtle or Floating Bird suites, the ones down on the beach. And so they're nestled in amongst the trees with their own pathways down to the beach. And then you have 2 more suites up on the peninsula itself. So one is set right at the edge of the peninsula, and one is just behind the headland there, which I can show you here. So these are called Laughing Whale, and there's one set just in the trees here, and I believe that's the roof of one of them, and then the other one is set, as I mentioned, on the edge of the peninsula there. As well as these 2 suites, you've also got some other communal areas at the top of the peninsula, what they call the sunset deck and dining area. They also have a library tent, so where they have a telescope and lots of books. If it's a particularly rainy day, or it is also air conditioned, so somewhere to shelter from the heat. And they've got these beautiful viewing platforms from up there as well, where you can see the sunset and the sunrise, should you wish. So what we get asked a lot is how to transfer, or how to go from one end of the hotel to the other, you know, having these 2 quite separate areas. This is the road that takes you from one to the other. And the hotel has golf buggies which take guests from one to the other anytime they want to. In fact, over the pandemic, over COVID, they invested in 8, well, they had likely 2 or 3 already, but they invested in some more golf buggies. So they now have 8 in total. So they have 1 per suite plus an extra one, so that people can stay within their buggies. So they've got a really good supply of transport options for people who want to get from one place to another at any time of day. They also have a trail that takes guests from one area to the other that goes through the forest. That takes about 25 minutes, but you're guaranteed to see at least a little bit of wildlife along the way. So the suites, as you saw just now, there are 3 different kind of categories of suites, but they don't actually range that much at the moment in terms of size. So they range between 110 and 120 square meters. Their main differences is 1, their location, and 2, their bathroom facilities, really. But as you can see here, they're all set up on their own platforms, and they are surrounded by foliage. So even though you have those 5 suites out on the beachfront, they really do have this wonderful sense of exclusivity and privacy. You can't see one suite from another, and so you're kind of set in this little bubble, little cocoon of privacy in each of them. And one thing to mention is that these suites were all built on platforms, and so there's 0 foundations. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning, one of the main reasons, or one of the main aspects that the owner really wanted to put forward here was to have minimal impact on the environment. So they didn't cut down any trees in the construction of the hotel. And one of the briefs that the owner gave the architects, called AW2 Architects, who have actually won a few awards for this hotel in the last couple of years, was that he didn't want the hotel to be visible from the sea. And so that slide we just saw of the peninsula, it was very difficult to see the different buildings. And so the idea being that if they were to dismantle any of these suites, any of the tents and any of the platforms, they would have left no trace, which is really quite extraordinary. So yeah, they're beautifully sumptuous, they're incredibly well designed, very stylish, these beautiful large terraces out of the front of the suites. They all have these lovely kind of quiet closing glass doors, but still within this structure of quite a large canvas safari tent. This is one of the beachfront suites, and as you can see here, it leads right down into the foliage. And then from this photograph, you can see the sea just beyond the trees there. So the interiors, as well as the platforms and the tents were actually bought, but then the interiors of the platforms and the surrounding areas were all designed by this same architect company. And to begin with, when it first opened, they had 10% of their furnishings made locally. But since then, and helped by the pandemic, because they have really started to connect with the local communities, they now have 80% of their furniture and furnishings being commissioned locally, which is really quite extraordinary. They've made these wonderful relationships with local carpenters. The wood underfoot when you go into these feels very soft to the touch, but you can tell it is also, you know, really solid. It doesn't creak at all, and it's got this, you walk in and you suddenly are surrounded by this wonderful hush of very natural hues and a lot of wooden furniture, a lot of bamboo, and just instantly makes you feel very calming. So there are fans that are in each of the suites, as well as air conditioning units. They are also part of the national grid of Costa Rica, so they do get their energy from the national grid, but the energy on the national grid of Costa Rica is considered to be 100% fueled by clean energy. So that's something they wanted to be very exact about. As well as the floor being very kind of quiet to walk on and very soft to touch, the ceilings of the tents are actually layered in up to 7 layers. So you feel like you're kind of in a very beautiful, spacious, big hotel room, but there is something about it that still leads the eye outside. You've got these windows and glass doors surrounding you. You've got nature right there. You can still hear it as well. You still hear the sea and the wind and nature. You know, if there's any kind of leaves that are falling or seeds that are coming down. They did still make the ceilings move. So you've got this feeling of excellent comfort, but still knowing that you're in the wilderness, because you are exactly in a tent at the end of the day. So the suites themselves are set apart by at least 40 meters. So that adds to that level of privacy and exclusivity. But there are 2 suites on the beachfront that have this living room suite here, which you can see on the right-hand side. between them. And this can be added on to a package. Say if there are two families traveling together or two couples traveling together, they can then also have this extra living room space and dining area. So the two suites that they are between are Floating Bird 1 and Lazy Turtle 1. And then the differences between a lot of the suites are the indoor and outdoor showers and bathtubs. So the outdoor bathtubs are only in the Laughing Whale suites, which I'll go to in just a moment. The Floating Bird suites have an extra bathroom annex, which you go down a corridor to get to. And these have outdoor and indoor showers and an indoor bathtub. And then the Lazy Turtle suites just have indoor and outdoor showers. And so this is the corridor that leads to a separate bathroom in the Floating Bird suites. And then the Laughing Whale suites up on the peninsula, ever so slightly smaller at 110 meters squared. These are incredibly spectacularly positioned suites because they have this incredible panoramic over the ocean. And so you get this wonderfully colourful sunsets. You can spot whales quite often in the ocean here. And there's lots of boats that go past as well, but you feel incredibly hidden in these suites and with this, and very isolated as well. So there's two of these, which are quite close, well, I mean, relatively close to the sunset deck, so you don't feel too isolated. And so, as I mentioned, one of the main objectives really was to bring people closer to nature. And I felt that these suites really did strike that perfect balance between comfort and nature. So a bit more about the interiors. Each of the suites has these king-size beds and a living room space with sofas and chairs. They do say that they can fit up to a family of 4 in some of the suites. I believe it's the Floating Birds that they prefer to do that, but ideally it's a maximum of 3 people in these suites. They use this sofa bed for the extra bed, but it does depend on the size of the children. So that's something that you might want to discuss with them or us. We can contact them for you when requesting the different suites, depending on the availability as well. In each of the rooms, everyone is equipped with different things like this amazing Kasiiya kit. They have these eco mini bars, which are like cool boxes, which you can see here, which is where drinks are kept cool. Their ice packs are replaced every day, and you're gifted with a thermos of hot water every morning as well as every evening. You've got different amazing herbal teas and different types of coffee to help yourself to. So this Kasiiya kit also supplies guests with a phone charger, a radio, a head torch, and mosquito repellent, which is actually herbal mosquito repellent. Each of the rooms does also have a telephone now, which is a new addition in the last year, as well as this radio, so they can communicate with reception as quickly as they like, if they want to go from one area of the hotel to another, if they want some room service, because those distances can be quite large. Okay, down to the main areas of the lodge. So this is the view of the main cabana. This is where people arrive, just behind this, when they first arrive to the lodge, and they can sit down and have a really refreshing drink and continue with their check-in. And it's also the dining area for breakfast and lunch, and where you meet your guide for different excursions. So as you can see here, this is a really beautiful area just to sit and relax, enjoy a drink, have your meal with a cool, fresh breeze that's constantly coming off the ocean and up to this terrace. You can see a little platform out here where you've got sun lounges under the trees. You quite often see monkeys and sloths in these trees as well. So breakfast is served as a 4 small course meal to your liking. So that can be like anything from, you know, avocado and hams and cheeses to really, really beautiful fresh fruits, lots of yogurt, lots of fresh fruit juices. And then for lunch, there are a couple of options per course. And this is the area where people come to talk to you about your excursions, also meet your guide, or just sit back and relax as well. So 90% of the dishes or food served at the hotel is comprised of local, fresh and organic ingredients. They actually have recently brought on a new local Costa Rican chef called Aaron, who takes a lot of the typical ingredients and turns them into these fantastic gourmet meals. And he's also on hand to give a great cooking class as well, should anyone want to kind of delve into that. There's a lot of seafood, obviously, that comes fresh from the sea, a lot of fish, but they do definitely cater for any vegans or anyone with any dietary requirements. And then the other area where dining takes place is up at the sunset deck. So this is the picture from the first slide, and the aerial view of the sunset deck and the covered evening dining area. So this is the kind of views you can expect to see from there, and this is the sunset deck, which of course can be used during the day for sunbathing and just relaxing. But it is one of the most incredible sunsets I think I've ever seen, because you've got this kind of bank of clouds that changes colours every moment, and the moon is rising at the same time as the sun setting. Is really spectacular. So you go up there and you're greeted with a cocktail before dinner is served. So they have this incredibly beautiful hardwood table underneath the covered dining area with these incredible bamboo lampshades, which is where a lot of the evening dining take place. When the hotel first opened a couple of years ago, the idea was for them to everyone to come together and to dine together. They wanted to create this kind of natural experience, but also take inspiration from different safari lodges as well. And what kind of then transpired was that people would prefer either to be kind of to break into their holiday a bit before they dined with other people, or just weren't too keen on that. So what they do now is they set the table for the different tents, the different guests staying, and organize their time for eating. And then they just let it kind of develop holistically from there. If anybody wants to dine together, they can. And they can set up extra tables as well in this area. And what they also can do is some room service. So if anybody wants to eat while out on their decks, then they can do that as well. So going on to the experiences whilst you're at Kasiiya. So Kasiiya has this all-inclusive price, as all of our lodges do, which includes all the food. It doesn't include alcohol, and includes the transfer, as I mentioned, over 4 nights, and includes a selection of different activities whilst they're at the lodge. So together with the idea of really connecting with wilderness and nature, the owners really wanted to put this kind of ethos across of finding your pace. Apparently Kasiiya in Swahili means find your pace, to be able to enhance each guest's stay. And it's really about kind of rejuvenation, restoration of the soul, like just taking your time and relaxing. So they've got snorkeling equipment to use, all of the masks and the snorkels. They've got life jackets and flippers. They have kayaks, they have stand-up paddle boards, and also they've got a few trails on the peninsula. And these are all the things that they have that is included. They have 2 guides on site. They used to just have 1, but recently they invested in another for the complimentary experiences. So Diego is one who's their biologist for hikes on the property and to nearby national parks. And then Sebastian is their guide for the water. So for water wildlife during any of the kind of water-based activities. So I'm just going to go over the beaches that are accessible from the hotel itself. As many of you may already know, no beach in Costa Rica is considered private. You can't privately own a beach. So while these 3 beaches could potentially be accessed from the sea, they're generally not. If anybody was to come to this area, they might do some snorkeling around here. You really don't see that many tourists or that many boats coming into the bays. And then because the access road just comes to the hotel, and also because it is so bumpy, it's quite rare that you find anyone else coming to the area, and plus the land around the beaches is all privately owned as well. So on the left, you have Hidden Beach, you have Laguna Beach here, where the hotel is situated, just here in the shade, and then Portuguese Beach on the right-hand side. So as I mentioned, Laguna Beach is this beautiful, wide open, calm, 50-meter beach with white sand. You can go straight into this water and swim. I felt it was really safe. The waves aren't big. There was very little current, which you don't find in that many places, especially on the Pacific side of Costa Rica. Yeah, just checking I got that right. And so it is this incredibly fortunate location, really, where you've got this deserted space, essentially all for the hotel. And then Hidden Beach is just around the corner, and you can only get here by water. So you can only get here by kayaking or stand-up paddleboarding, or if you're a particularly strong swimmer and you don't get exhausted swimming. It's got these really beautiful shallow waters that are very, very clear, bright blue. Lots to see in these waters as well, and particularly around here where they do the snorkeling. So they do the snorkeling, excuse me, straight off the beach, and this is where they mainly do it. It's considered one of the better places on the coast to do snorkeling. You can see lots of shoals of really colourful fish, as well as manta rays, turtles, and then out deeper in the ocean you've got dolphins and whales as well. So the whales are easily spotted during their season in the seas, which is July to September. And you're likely to see dolphins all year round. We saw a group of manta rays jumping in the sea when we were here, and I just thought it was one of the most spectacular sights. And then over the peninsula, on the other side, you've got Portuguese Beach. And this is a bit of a hike to get to. You're going down some quite steep hills, or you can get transported here by the hotel staff. Portuguese Beach is steeper, that goes into and it's more wild, so you've got much bigger rolling waves. You've got the jungle that comes right down to the sea. It's absolutely spectacular. But one thing just to kind of watch out for is that it can be ever so slightly more rough than the other beaches, and the hotel staff do ensure that they tell everybody about the conditions of this beach here. But again, a very good example of what a Pacific beach would normally feel like and look like. So on top of the kind of included excursions, there are lots of different extra activities that guests can take. Two things that they really kind of installed in the property when they first opened are these two staff members called Bruno and Yamuna. So Bruno is an instructor in movement. And what he does is that he brings people really back to their childlike movements through using disciplines like yoga and Tai Chi and capoeira, and he uses the whole property and the nature around the property to do this with people, and I found it really quite extraordinary. Again, this was about helping people like really slow down, look at their surroundings and absorb where they are and switch off from the surrounding world. And then Yamuna enhances that even more. He's a massage therapist. He's a really interesting character. And specializes in things like kind of chakra and aromatherapy. And so, yeah, with some really interesting therapies, and he helps you again reconnect with the nature around you. And then the hotel can offer extra excursions which can be paid locally. So as I mentioned right at the beginning, this whole coastline is very well known for its good surfing. About 30 minutes away, there's a particularly good spot where they can they can contract a local supplier, trusted supplier, to take people out there who are particularly keen on this one area called Witches Rock, and they take people out by boat to be able to surf those waves. There are tours to local national parks, to local waterfalls, cacao tour or a coffee plantation brewing tour, particularly if it's a wet day, it's quite a good option. There's sea fishing available, diving and free diving opportunities, and then there are much longer hikes either in the national parks or up in the mountains behind Kasiiya as well, which can take all day for the active. Just going back to the diving and the free diving, this is something that Simon tried when he was at Kasiiya, the free diving in particular. He is an absolute water baby. He loves swimming anyway. So the opportunity, absolutely relished the opportunity to try a bit of free diving. And they have a specialized instructor who teaches you about the breathing techniques, and they lower a rope down into the water with a snorkel mask, and you lower yourself down. He said it was one of the most incredible experiences that he ever had. And to be able to do this in the warm waters of Costa Rica, I think is a real bonus. Okay, so that's really kind of like a big overview of Kasiiya and what it has to offer. I hope I've kind of given the impression of what we feel about Kasiiya. It's just this incredibly restorative place where you can go. I only spent 2 nights there, but I have to say it felt longer, but I wanted to stay for longer. It was all encompassing, and you just want, it's not somewhere you go to take lots of activities. You can go and do nothing, and you can go and do a 2-hour activity a day, and you still feel like you're not bored just because you're surrounded by all of this incredible nature. The developments coming up for this year is that they're actually going to be adding 2 more suites. So you've got this suite called the Floating Bird Nest, and they are specifically designing this suite to accommodate a family of 5, so 2 adults and up to 3 children, so 2 teenagers and 1 child. And so this will be ever so slightly bigger and on the other side of the beach cabana, but still kind of beachfront. And then there'll be another lazy turtle suite, so a slightly smaller one. This year they're closed between the 10th of May and the 1st of July. They open again for July, August and September. They always close around October time because they get particularly strong rains here. And because none of the buildings in this area have foundations, it does mean that they have to kind of manage that very well. They actually have a river that comes down through the through the property down to the sea. And so yeah, that's one of the reasons why they close in October. And then at the end of November, they'll be opening again with all 7 suites, with a total of 9. Yeah, so again, I hope that I was able to kind of convey this true message of pause, breathe and discover, which is what they really set out to do. And I think they've achieved this incredibly well. So again, these are the key selling points from Kasiiya. You have these beautiful luxury air-conditioned tinted suites with private decks, outdoor showers. You have the 2 of them which are up on the peninsula, which are ideal for couples particularly. There's a strong focus on connecting with nature and exploration. And then you have these incredibly beautiful 3 beaches you have secluded access to. So yeah, I think it's definitely a good addition to kind of any itinerary whilst in Costa Rica.